Today's Neuro rant, bit of a reflective journey. HD, neurodivergent, with a foster care and boys home. With that background, being neurodivergent and had the opportunity to kind of work in different spaces, it just gives me, I think, a pretty interesting perspective. Middle age, right? And trying to figure things out, as a first gen college grad, neurodivergent black man, and just doesn't feel like I tapped into my greatness yet. Yes, that's probably hubris, but it's the battery that I best operate at. So you may ask, how does that connect to mothering? Dual mothering. I had my biological mother, someone who I was separated from by the state. Just put it kindly like that. Led me to some time living in foster care. Led me some time living in a group home, and then ultimately aging out and going straight to the Navy, and there we go. So my neurodivergencies, some of the, let's say, side effects of my neurodivergency. I'm very, very attentive to nuance. So growing up in a boys' home, I think I was 11, it was an interesting dynamic, your family come pick you up on holidays, this and that. But then I was always uber aware of context, that separation from my biological mother, if you will. It just didn't have that maternal effect. However, my mom has showed me some of the most courageous things ever. And it operates that battery in my back. I think the coolest thing I ever watched my mom do, and understand we grew up in an economically disadvantaged kind of background, so I'm holding on everything she gives me. The good, the bad, the ugly, whatever it is. That was her gifts. So not all gifts are painless. I remember, and then also being, in retrospective, understanding what I felt, and then being an educational researcher and kind of understanding the technical definition of poverty, an educated, an empiricalized way of poverty, really understanding what poverty means systemically, and then being someone who lived that way, right? So those memories from living with her are tangible for me. I can still hear the water on the tin roof. I can, I can still feel memories of pain. But the day she quit smoking cigarettes was probably the dopest thing I ever seen in life. We used to walk all over town. From this little country town, we used to walk all over. So I don't know what the town really said about my mom, but it is that. So my mom is a neurodivergent queer woman. When I watched her quit smoking carton of cigarette, it was like, the money that costs, right? The time to go walk and get it. And seeing how much she smoked before, from my 7, 8-year-old self, I could gather that she liked smoking a lot. And this time, for some reason, we walked back home and she took them all out, tore them up and threw them in the garbage, and ain't smoked since. And this is, well over 35 years ago, right? So, that was the dopest thing I saw. Like I said, gifts, sometimes your gifts are painful, but sometimes your gifts become batteries. I know the value. I saw she valued something, and she made a commitment to herself in a way where she ain't ever smoked since then. Understanding how addictive cigarettes were, all that stuff, right? I'm computing all of that. That was just cool to see, because the trauma that I received up at that point, I had no reason seeking admiration from my mother. However, transition to the group home was an interesting time. So there's distance from like going to the group home and my mother. At this point, I'm in foster care, blah, blah, blah. And then like pretty much on holidays and stuff, I would always see my mother. So it was kind of like these visits and stuff. So she wrote to me and all those things. So we stayed in touch. But growing up in this boys' home, this notion of safety, you just felt it. It felt like this is where I need to be and this is where I can thrive. I think the home for me was a repairing experience. This is why I have mixed feelings about some practices, right? Because I could definitely say I was a person in which the institution, i.e. the state, repaired me. Repaired me to what? Can't tell you. The things that my neurodivergency gifted me, crazy memory, attention to detail, to recall things in a very vivid way. And then what's crazy on that is then I can feel those moments. Like I'm feeling them right now. I can feel those moments, but then I can explain these moments to people. I can listen for these moments. I can listen for these moments from people. It's empathy. You know, the woman that I imprinted on in the boys' home, those who are psychologists, right? You know, this is why I studied psychology undergrad, to kind of get these understandings in more technical terms. Is like, I didn't know who Maslow was. I didn't know hierarchy needs was. But I felt when I went to that boys' home in a town called Beaumont, Texas, I went to that boys' home, and if the hierarchy needs can just drop out the sky and give you a recharge of hope. See, Maslow's, them jokers supposed to give you hope. Self-actualization is like, in my opinion, this constant state of hope. You hope and you win, you hope and you win. You wake up and you hope again and you win some, right? But imagine you live in a state where you hope and you lose all the fucking time. That's oppression. And somehow I lived at the nexus of hope and oppression between my two mothers. One mother took me to a place where I endured pain, where I don't really feel shit. However, the other mother made me feel so hopeful. It extends this like long patience of withstanding the lashings just to get the data needed to maybe figure out empathy. How do you communicate that? How do you write about that? How do you think about that? Can we operationalize such thing? You know, those who know me, I say mastering empathy is kind of like dancing with the devil. You know, those who are religious, you know, you think about the dynamics between, you know, Lucifer and God, you know, you just think about those dynamics, right? I mean, that's the nexus. That's the yin and yang, right? So my mom's and happy, lovely Mother's Day to both of them. I love them both dearly. It's not one over the other. It's just like these two forge interesting understanding of empathy from multiple perspectives, you know. Now, I'm not saying I'm a master of any of them. I can just see them all kind of in a Doctor Strange sort of way. And then, you know, what drives me is figuring out, is there a magic bullet for like empathy? Why empathy? I think empathy cures all. You know, there's not a social ill that empathy can't cure if there's a critical mass of empathy. I ain't talking about empathy for me or you listening. I'm talking about empathy in ways that when it's time to go, it's time to go. Kind of like that George Floyd shit. That's whatever that is what I feel is what my two moms gave me, and I saw our country kind of endure and experience at that moment. That's strange that I'm talking about George Floyd this particular moment, because what? He cried out for his mama. Happy Mother's Day.